So Bob Gates was Secretary of Defense, of course, under both President Bush and Barack Obama. Now, I actually liked him as Secretary of Defense. He had a really, really tough job filling in for Don Rumsfeld, who just butchered it for 6 years in a row. And not only the worst Secretary of Defense we've had, certainly in my lifetime, the worst secretary we've had, including secretaries that actually type stuff out. Okay, Rumsfeld was the worst, and Gates kind of rescued that to some degree, right? And he served ably under President Obama. Now he has a new book out with the unfortunate name of Duty. But that's the name of the book, Duty, Memoirs of a Secretary at War. Memoirs of a Secretary on the can. Anyway, look, I've written positive things about him. I've said positive things about him. And even in this book, he says, like, President Obama didn't really believe in the surge in Afghanistan. I think that's relatively true. He said that President Obama and Hillary Clinton didn't even oppose the surge in Iraq. They said in his presence that they just said that for political reasons to get progressives to vote with them. I totally believe that as well. So I actually don't have a beef to pick with Bob Gates at all until now. Now he said two things that I think are absurd. First, he's talking about Harry Reid and how he, hurt the troops. Let's listen to this.
When you have somebody like the Senate Majority Leader come out in the middle of the surge and say this war is lost, I thought that was one of the most disgraceful things I'd heard a politician say. That sends a riveting message to kids who are putting their lives on the line every day that they're doing it for nothing, and that was absolutely not the case.
Nobody does the better than Mika. They shouldn't even rename her Mika Brzezinski. Okay. Second of all, they used to talk about the Chicago-style politics from the Obama team, and I didn't believe it until I saw Gates in that neck brace. Don't hurt him, dog. Don't hurt him. They're like, oh, you're going to write a book about it. So you're like, oh, here, take this. Is there anything funnier than a dude in a neck brace? Like, man, that's such bad timing for him. Right in the middle of the book tour. Oh no, I'm kind of hurt, dog. Don't ask me if I'm all right. So anyway, now on to the substance. He said, Harry Reid put out this message that they're doing it for nothing, and that's absolutely not the case. That's what he said at that. Okay, Bob, we're over it. We're not in Iraq anymore. You're not the Secretary of Defense. Let it go, okay? Let it go. That was a totally senseless war. And unfortunately, they absolutely died for nothing. Now, I wish that weren't the case. I wish your first boss, George W. Bush, hadn't sent him in the first place. Remember, Iraq did not attack us on 9/11. They had nothing to do with 9/11. They had nothing to do with Al-Qaeda. That was as senseless a war as you could have. It makes me sick that those kids died in that war. But it doesn't make it any better by saying, oh no, that war was awesome. Yeah, it had a lot of purpose. I mean, look at the government of Iraq now. Basically working with the government of Iran and still in the middle of a civil war we started. Yeah, you really proved your point that was a brilliant war. So that's nonsense. Second of all, the worst part is when he says Harry Reid, was disgraceful and the troops, it cost them their morale. They got to stop it with the morale point, okay? Look, the troops needed morale back in World War I when they would say, all right, now you guys go over the hill and 90% of you will get shot, okay? You really needed morale, otherwise they were going to run the other way, okay? Now, is morale really an issue? Are you guys calling our soldiers unprofessional? Are you saying that, Harry, the idea that lone survivor, anyone, a guy in the middle of Fallujah is sitting there going, I can't believe what Harry Reid said. I've lost my morale. I think I'm going to give up. I think I'm going to give up to the Taliban in Afghanistan. I'm going to give up to Saddam's troops in Fallujah. They don't think like that. They don't work like that. That's a BS political point to hide behind the troops and say, if you criticize the war, then you're criticizing the troops and you're costing their morale. No, Harry Reid was entirely right when he said that we had lost the war at that point. And the ironic thing is, Robert Gates actually swept that mess up and helped to conclude it in a way that wasn't as disastrous as Rumsfeld, which I give him credit for. But when he says this, that's revisionist history and not true. But what he said about Edward Snowden, I think is even worse. Let's watch that.
I think that the revelations have done a lot of damage. Sounds like they have the potential to do a lot more. I think he's a traitor. We've spent 40 years building institutions of oversight for intelligence since the mid-1970s in the Congress, in the executive branch, and in the judiciary. There are multiple avenues for people who believe that the rules are being broken or that the law is being broken to pursue in order to bring those problems to authorities who can evaluate whether or not somebody is breaking the law. And then to flee to the protection of that notorious protector of human rights and privacy and civil liberties, Vladimir Putin, I think speaks volumes.
All right, now a couple of ironies there. Now, first of all, he says there are plenty of different ways of going about this in the legal way. Yeah, how'd that work out for Bradley Manning? How'd that work out for anybody, right? Now, Bradley Manning stayed. He didn't flee to Russia, right? Now, he did take the files and give them to WikiLeaks, but then he said, okay, I'm right here. They got him, and oh yeah, he's serving decades in prison. How did it work out for the other whistleblowers at the NSA? They got charged with they didn't get praise. Oh, thank you for pointing out something illegal or unconstitutional the NSA is doing. They got charged with Espionage Act. In fact, Obama has used the Espionage Act more than all presidents combined and then doubled. You think any whistleblower in his right mind would stick around to see what Obama's going to do to him? Or let alone Bush earlier? No way! That's an absurd point. Second of all, he called him a traitor and said he betrayed the trust. Well, that's kind of ironic because Bob Gates just wrote a book about the two presidents he served, one that's a sitting president that's still in the middle of a theoretical war in Afghanistan, and had revelations that hurt both those presidents and Vice President Biden. And remember, about Bush, he also said that he totally disagreed with a lot of his decisions and thought that they were foolish. So Glenn Greenwald writes this tweet. Heard he wrote a book betraying high-level confidences. Oh, wait. In other words, it wasn't Snowden who wrote that book. It was Gates who wrote that book. So please spare me your righteous indignation about Edward Snowden. I wish he told us what you were up to earlier. And lastly, I'd like to add, don't ask me if I'm all right.